Most of League's champions are granted powers by their race or innate abilities, but there's a decent number of champions who rely on their weapons for their strength. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of Runeterra's legendary weapons, starting with the gauntlets of Harok and the Nether Blade. Harok was said to be the first ascended warrior to be on the front line against the Void threat during the War of Acacia, known for diving into the heart of the Void and wounding its core with his magical gauntlets, and the legendary Nether Blade. He was without a doubt the most important ascended, because he discovered a way to destroy the Void once and for all. Unfortunately, Harok was betrayed and slain by the tyrant Nezuk, who stole one of his gauntlets, but didn't dare steal the one holding the blade because he knew that it was the world's only chance against the Void. Years later, the gauntlet holding the blade was found by Kassadin in one of Harok's secret temples, while the other gauntlet was found by Ezreal in the tomb of Nezuk. Neither Kassadin nor Ezreal used the gauntlets at their full power, because the true power of these weapons are unlocked when a user wields both at the same time. Basically, even though Kassadin has a legendary blade, it isn't at his maximum strength. The next weapon on the list is Nightfall. Mordekaiser has the power to manipulate souls, where he can shape souls into anything he wants. His domain, the Grey Realm, was built from the souls he manipulated, like him saying your soul is unworthy and turning you into a brick. In his first resurrection, he used the souls of the mages who brought him back to craft a mace called Nightfall. To draw Mordekaiser's attention, these mages must have been very powerful, so combined with Mordekaiser's own magic, the Nightfall was formed. The next weapon is Mir King's Trident. Thousands of years ago, when Ornn was spending his days in his forge making weapons, he had his favorite tools, until Volibear showed up and they ended up in a fight. It's said that during the fight, Ornn took his favorite fork and threw it into the sea, where it was found by some unknown being, and is now used to lead the seas. Many say that the fork became the trident wielded by Fizz, but I couldn't find confirmation anywhere. Others claim that the trident used to be the Mirai, Nami's tribe, but unfortunately, I couldn't find a solid source for that either. However, what we do know is that Ornn's fork wound up being an incredibly powerful weapon that can dominate the oceans. The next one is Hammer of Orlan. This was the first legendary weapon Riot created, and it was wielded by one of the founders of Demacia, Orlan. Although he wielded a hammer named after him, we don't know where he got it, only that it was forged for a true hero. When he died, he passed it on to Poppy, who swore to find a true hero worthy of wielding the hammer, though she didn't realize that she was the hero he'd meant to give it to. So Poppy uses the hammer to protect Demacia, while still searching for the hero she thinks should wield the hammer, even though she herself is the hero. Moving on to the next weapons, a set of them, we have the Wuju Blades. The Wuju Blades were created by legendary smith Doran, the same guy who created the Doran items in the game, like Doran's blade, Doran's shield, Doran's ring, etc. After crafting them, Doran hid the blade somewhere secret in Ionia, and uttered poems so that spirits would bless the weapons. The thing is, the secret place Doran chose to hide the blades was Mistfall. Mistfall is a place that has connection with one of the most powerful creatures in Runeterra, the Vastaya Shirei, who are the beings that gave rise to the Vastaya. So these blades are massively buffed. They were created by one of the best smiths ever, and blessed by one of the top tier races in Runeterra. That just strengthens the claim that Master Yi is one of the most powerful beings in Runeterra. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe, drop a like on the video, and maybe consider becoming a member to get access to a bunch of cool perks. And check out our store. There's a lot of really cool designs available and products, so go check them out. Links in the description. Anyways, back to the video. The next weapon is Drakebane, which is the Spear of Jarvan. The weapon's name was revealed in an old short story called Aftermath, the one after the supposed death of Xin Zhao, which is helpful even though it's no longer canon. As the name suggests, it was created to kill dragons. More specifically, it was made to slay a sick ice dragon called Maelstrom, who was attacking Demacia in the early days of the kingdom. After the dragon was killed, the spear became a symbol of greatness, since it was crafted by the Orlan, the guy who made Poppy's hammer. In the short story, during a training session between Jarvan and Xin Zhao, it's said that if the spear is used by inexperienced hands, it becomes as dangerous to the wielder as to the enemy. Because of that risk, Demacia decided to use it as a ceremonial weapon passed down to the king's successor in each generation. Jarvan himself received the spear from his father when he was 16. Now, it makes sense why the blade was so difficult to wield. After all, it was able to change its size, so it's understandable that it would be hard to handle it, since you would have to know when to use it when it's 1 meter and when it's 10 meters, and get used to that size shift. The next weapon in this video is the Runic Blade. Riven got the sword as a reward after proving her worth to the Noxian army. It's said that the weapon was made especially for her. Big and heavy, a style of a weapon that Riven likes. And likely it was enchanted by LeBlanc. A short story made in 3 parts called Sisterhood of War went into more detail about the sword. It said that LeBlanc really wanted to retrieve the sword, so she sent people after Riven to get it. No one really knows why LeBlanc wants the sword so badly, but considering that LeBlanc only wants to gather the greatest weapons to guarantee the return of Mordekaiser, then the sword must be super sick. And considering the sword resemblance to those runes that Mbessa and Rictus use in Arcane to defend themselves against magic, it's quite possible that the type of runic magic interferes somehow in LeBlanc's plans. After that, Riven meets Yasuo's master, who breaks her sword, but accidentally dies by a wind cut from the sword. The thing is, even broken, the pieces of the sword stayed held together. Even when she separated and hid the pieces, they always came back together. Next up in the video, we have the Chalice, the most legendary weapon of all in Runeterra. Originally, people thought this weapon was the key to the Tomb of Azir, but actually it was the weapon of the goddess Sitaka, who was the leader of the Ascended God Warriors. After she died fighting the Void, her weapon was kept safe until the aspect of Twilight of that era, named Nyasha, manipulated a Darkin named Tanari to use it against the other Darkin. In the short story, it said that a silver fire descended from the heavens and absorbed the Darkin into the Chalice. The only one not absorbed by the weapon was Tanari, who reverted to being human, but then was killed by Misha. After that, the weapon was given to the Shuriman warriors so they could fight the remaining Darkin. So according to the lore, Sivir's boomerang is probably the most effective weapon against the Darkin in all of Runeterra. The next weapon is maybe the most iconic in League, because it's both an item in the game and a pretty famous weapon in the lore. Sanctity, better known as the Blade of the Rune King. This sword absorbs a part of the wielder's soul, and it symbolizes a pact with the weapon. It was passed down generation after generation among the kings of Camivor, representing the king giving a part of his soul for the kingdom. In the lore, sanctity is extremely important because it was directly responsible for trapping Viego's soul in the Shadow Isles and causing the ruination. After Viego was pierced by the weapon inside of the Waters of Life, he was unable to die, which triggered a weird reaction where the souls of the Isles died, but at the same time didn't, becoming specters. So following the ruination, the sword probably became more powerful than it already was, although we still don't know the full extent of its true power. The next entry isn't a single weapon, but rather an entire category of weapons, the Darkin weapons. Thousands of years ago, the Darkin were humans who showed great valor for the Shuriman Empire and went through the Ascension ritual, becoming god warriors with magical powers and anthropomorphic physical traits. However, after the war against Decathia, some Ascended were corrupted by the Void, going mad, distorting their bodies through the blood magic and starting a massive war. Seeing that the war could destroy the world, the aspect of Twilight gave mortals knowledge to trap the Darkin in their own weapons, making them lose their original forms. And even if a Darkin manages to return to a body and someone wields the weapon, they can't use their full power because no mortal body can contain their power for long without being destroyed. So the Darkin are doomed to always return to their weapon prison. But even while controlling the body of whoever wields them, these powerful weapons are without a doubt legendary because the Darkin are extremely powerful. Aatrox, their general and the most powerful among them, once killed the Celestial of War. However, there are also cases where the wielder manages to beat the Darkin and take their power, like the hypothetical Blue Kayn, who won the contest with Rast for control over their body, and secured some of his power, giving him attributes like increased strength and speed, without some of the other powers like blood magic. The next weapon on this list is Thresh's Lantern. A long time ago, in the Blessed Isles, Thresh was a simple monk guarding the Waters of Life and carrying a pretty ordinary lantern. He wanted to climb the positions of greater power, but since he came from a poor family, he was assigned to work as a guardian of magical artifacts, watching people less capable than him rise in the hierarchy just because their families were richer. Over the years, Thresh witnessed many of his friends die to those magical items, growing cold and bitter. Eventually, he became interested in a book that whispered about a person's darkest desires. When a senior monk found out, Thresh claimed his first victim. When Viego arrived on the Blessed Isles, Thresh guided him to the Waters of Life with a wide grin. When the Ruination was born, Thresh became a wraith as well. At that point, his lantern changed too, giving him the ability to absorb and imprison souls, which further amplified Thresh's power. In the cinematic None Escape, he shows a bit of how the lantern works, where the kid doesn't even notice that his soul has already been condemned. It's unknown what the limits of the lantern are, if any, but the fact that it drains souls and strengthens the wielder makes it a legendary item. Since we talked about Thresh's weapon, let's talk about the strongest weapon of the Sentinels of Light shown so far, which is the weapon of Akshan, called the Absolver. It was guarded by his master Shadiah, a veteran in the Sentinels of Light arsenal. The power of this weapon is kinda crazy. Basically, if it kills someone, it will revive people who were recently killed by that target, which is extremely OP. Obviously, the power to revive someone is off the charts, and it was this weapon that let the Sentinels defeat Viego. When Akshan killed Isolde, he was able to revive Gwen and Senna. With their combined power, they were able to defeat Viego. Not to mention, this weapon is the only thing that can revive someone without a huge side effect, like the way the Black Mist resurrects a person as a wraith. For the next one, we have the Azakana sword of Yone. This weapon has a lot going on behind it. Yone was a swordsman who was killed by his brother Yasuo, and was forced to fight an Azakana when he reached the spirit realm. When he was able to defeat the Azakana, the demon bit his face, fusing him and leaving with a strange half-dead state. As a result of this experience, Yone was given spirit abilities, including the ability to use the Azakana mask to see and track other Azakana. Before returning to the material realm, Yone took the Azakana's blade and swore to hunt down other Azakana and collect their masks. Since the Azakana are spirits, they cannot be harmed by normal weapons, so the fact that his blade can easily injure Azakana suggests it has some kind of spiritual power. Next, we've got Echo's weapon, the Z-Drive. Echo created the Z-Drive with help from Heimerdinger and his alternate universe version of Jinx, making a Hextech weapon that lets Echo rewind time. It's locked at about 4 seconds because of the limit before the side effects kick in. Technically, he can go back more, but then stuff like Heimer exploding or the Z-Drive blowing up in Victor's face might happen. Another drawback is that when rewinding time, Echo's wounds and his energy don't fully recover. You can see that when he's stopping Jinx from setting off the grenade and ends up all burned up. The ability to rewind time is insane, especially in the right hands. If Echo, just a physically normal human, can use it to get this powerful, imagine being like a Darkin and using the Z-Drive. Basically, the only thing stopping Echo from being a god is that he's still human. On to the next one, we have the Shield of Braum. In Freljord, there are demigods, and the oldest one among them is Ornn. Ornn is the demigod of fire and forge, and he's crafted tons of extremely powerful legendary objects and weapons. One of these artifacts is a vault door shield created to lock up Troll's treasure hoard after the troll messed with Ornn. One day, a troll cub got locked inside the vault. Braum heard the troll's cries and went to save him. He punched the door for 4 days and 4 nights and couldn't break it. So he flexed his massive muscles, destroyed the mountain around it, took the door and turned it into his shield. The door wasn't originally meant to be a weapon, but it's so durable that when Braum wielded it to protect the people of Freljord, it became legendary. Not just because Ornn made it, but because it was used by the Freljord's greatest hero. Moving on to the next weapon, we've got the Spirit Blade. The Kinku Order is an order from Ionia that's been keeping balance in those lands since the dawn of time. It was founded by the 3 greatest names of the order: the Fist of Shadow, who handles the material world, the Heart of the Tempest, which is still Kennen's role today, and the Eye of Twilight, who leads the order and handles matters of the spirit realm. The Eye of Twilight wields the Spirit Blade, which is a sword forged in the spirit realm and exists simultaneously in both places. In Zed's comic, we saw Shin banishing an evil spirit back into the spirit realm without much trouble. This sword has an insane amount of spiritual power. It gives its wielder the ability to see the spiritual essence of any living being, and other partly unknown powers, like teleportation, which is allowed by the blade in the champion's ultimate. Also, this sword is passed down from generation to generation for each Eye of Twilight. Shin's father, Master Kusho, wielded it before handing it down to him. For the next weapon, we have Illaoi's weapon, the Eye of God. As the greatest symbol of the Buru people, the Eye of God has immense spiritual power, which is passed down generation after generation to whomever holds the title of Truthbearer, which is currently Illaoi. A large portion of the power of this artifact comes from the weapon of its bearer, being linked to the core of the stone so they become one. The limits of this artifact's power are unknown, but Illaoi uses the tentacles of the goddess Nagakaboros to pull and manipulate souls of the others with the intention of judging whether the person's soul is strong. In short, this is a weapon that can manipulate souls and concentrates the power of a mega powerful goddess, but it's extremely difficult physically and spiritually to wield. The next weapons on the list are the Kashuri weapons of Jin. Jin always sought the best ways to commit his assassinations, but he was captured and imprisoned by the Kenku Order and his sons. During the invasion of Nexus though, the Master Kusho released Jin, and the Kashuri family offered him weapons made by a woman called the Maker. She is described as a legendary artisan, using many arms to create flawless creations. Since she shares Jin's twisted vision, she gave him a weapon with technology similar to Hextech, infused with magic. This magic distorts the bodies of his victims into flowers and other beautiful things, materializing in real life what Jin's sick mind sees when he kills someone. In the Zed comic, we see how the victims' bodies look until the magic dissipates when someone touches them. But the weapons are that way because of Jin himself, who uses the magic and his genius brain to exploit the weapon's full potential, making them extremely legendary. For our last weapon, we have the Aspect of Justice's sword. It is said that this sword was forged in the fire of stars and can burn the souls of the unworthy. It is the main weapon of the Aspect of Justice. The sword emanates starlight fire and shadow, coming from celestial magic, which on its own is one of the most powerful kinds of magic in the universe. The sword belonged to Mihira, who is the Aspect of Justice, but she passed the blade down to her daughters Kale and Morgana, who split the sword in two. With it, the sisters protected Demacia from any threat, like when they fought Aatrox. Nowadays, it's wielded only by Kale, but it is so powerful that only in 2 known cases has it been used at its full power. It was first used to end the Rune Wars, and secondly to destroy the body of Aatrox. While it certainly was used by the ancient Aspects of Justice too, we still don't know how or when. So the fact that it is one of the most powerful weapons of the Celestials of Targon means it's totally a legendary weapon. And that's basically it. I'll see you in the next video.